And good morning to you. Time for our conversation with Dr. Denise Pearson. She is the Vice Chancellor. Denise, I'm not going to get this right. So, the Vice Chancellor and the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at the State System of Higher Education. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And Denise, I have to admit, I cheated. I read it.
And you got it right. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you, Todd.
I'm so happy that you're able to do this with us here this morning. You know, we've got all of the changes, the state system redesign, and it's a really difficult time within the state system of higher education. And you're starting this job here this fall and you had to jump right into it. But a part of this whole redesign and a part of the difficult conversations happening is the cultural climate on some of our campuses. And as the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, this is all a part of that entire puzzle, isn't it? In terms of recruiting students, making students comfortable at their campuses, and really turning out solid citizens.
You are absolutely correct, and it may be helpful to begin this conversation by defining what we actually mean by diversity, equity, and inclusion, because they are different concepts, even though that they are related. So let me just start with that, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, so when we talk about diversity, we are really referring to those differences amongst us, such as race, gender, ethnicity, and the like. But when we start talking about equity, we are referring to notions of fairness, and I like to liken it to giving everyone a pair of shoes versus a pair of shoes that fit. Mm-hmm. And then when we talk about inclusion, we're referring to those actions that we take on our campuses and in the communities that foster feelings of belonging, value, and respect amongst our students, as well as faculty and staff. So yes, what's happening with system redesign is connected to building a system of diversity, equity, and inclusion where everyone can thrive regardless of their route to getting to our PASHE institutions. What I've been doing over the past 3 months, I've been reaching out and having conversations with a wide range of stakeholder groups, including especially students, faculty, staff, legislatures, other folks in the community, just to get an idea of what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like from these different perspectives, and their understanding of what it is and what it could be and what their role is in helping PASHE become the system where all students, again, regardless of their zip code, when they come to our campuses, they are welcomed, but not just on our campuses, Todd, but they're welcomed in the community and they feel safe in the community as well, because you talked about some of the issues that students are facing. It's not just limited to experiences that they have on campus. It spills out into the community as well.
Absolutely. Are you finding in your conversations that campus to campus or even region to region that there are certain issues that are more pressing in one area as opposed to another, and certain other issues that stand out in one other area?
So what I'm finding, I'd say generally no. Issues around faculty, staff, student diversity is an issue across our campus. Of course, some campuses are more diverse than others. We're hearing issues around the need for greater curriculum diversity. Students want to see different scholars reflected in the curriculum. We're seeing gaps in student achievement, whether we're looking at graduation rates, first-year retention, and the like. And then this whole issue going back to how you opened our conversation around campus climate. Students are expressing concerns around, and when I say students, in particular students of color, are expressing concerns about their experiences with campus policing. But to that point, I want to pause and say that I've been having really positive and productive conversations with chiefs of police on the different campuses, and there is a need, a willingness, a desire, I really believe an authentic desire to do the work that's necessary to make sure that all students feel safe and not discriminated against because of the color of their skin or because of their ethnicity when they come to one of our PASHE campuses. So, although there are concerns being expressed with which I do not diminish at all. I know I am a black woman and the mother of 3 black sons. I understand these issues, but there is a desire, I believe, on our PASHE campuses and across the system to do the work that's necessary to move the needle in another direction, a more positive direction.
That work largely becomes the task of the university presidents and the committees that they appoint in order to address some of those issues. I know here at IUP, we're blessed that Dr. Driscoll jumped on this whole issue right from the start when we had a very racially motivated, basically, attack, a verbal attack and a social media attack on black students. Dr. Driscoll jumped right into action. That's so important from a local standpoint that the university presidents get on board with it quickly and do what they can, isn't it?
It is so true. I always say leadership matters. And, I've been in higher education for over 30 years. And, to be effective, whatever your role is, you really have to have the support at the highest levels of leadership. And you're absolutely right. Dr. Driscoll is an example of what that should look like. And I should also say, for me to come on board, and recently at the October 15th Board of Governors meeting, a commission was established on diversity, equity, and inclusion to recommend a framework for how the board can foster diversity, equity, and inclusion at the system level. But directly to your point, yes, leadership matters, and we are fortunate to have that type of leadership in President Driscoll.
That type of commission that you just mentioned, obviously it's an information gathering thing at first, and you've been involved in that for 3 months now, information gathering, but then it has to then transition to planning action and then taking action. And I know that has to be the direction that you're working toward, is it not?
It absolutely is. We believe in making decisions that are data informed, and to that extent, we collect a lot of data, but what we are committed to doing is a better job at making it accessible to decision makers across the PASHE system. We want to make sure that student voices are involved in all matters pertaining to strategic planning aimed at, again, creating environments where all students, faculty, and staff can thrive. And that also includes that data collection, identifying best practices so that we can scale them where appropriate. We know that one size does not fit all. However, there are certain things that we know through the research that we can do that will have an impact on student outcomes regardless of what campus we're serving.
We're talking to Dr. Denise Pearson. She is the Vice Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education and the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Obviously, you don't get named to the position that you now occupy without having a passion for the topic and great experience and expertise in it. So where did this find its birth in you?
Oh, what a great question. Well, I have been in higher education for 30 years. And I began my academic career working for a community college in Colorado where, I had the privilege of being in a classroom with adults who were committed to improving their future, improving the future of their families, their communities, disrupting, generational poverty. And that's really where higher education, caught my attention. And since then, I've just had one opportunity after another, to see in real time the impact of higher education on the lives of citizens. I've worked in Wisconsin. I've worked in Colorado. I've worked in California. And no matter where you go, it doesn't change. Higher education is your best bet when it comes to wanting to ensure financial security and social mobility. So that's what drives me. Prior to joining PASHE, I served as the Vice President for Academic Affairs and Equity Initiatives for the Association of State Higher Education Executive Officers, of which PASHE is a member. And, I just continue to be fortunate for a career that allows me to engage in work that I love.
As we move forward then over the course of the next year, 2, 3, 5 years, where do you see equity issues and diversity issues going at the state system campuses? Obviously, we want improvement, but we also want to see results in graduation rates and in alumni who are able to give back to their universities and even add to that equation. I'm sure that's a goal, but how do we go about achieving it?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Todd. So you have to know where you are before you can start charting a path for going forward. And we've done some initial work in the creation of a diversity, equity, and inclusion data dashboard. We know the rate at which we are recruiting, or should I say enrolling and graduating students from various historically excluded groups. We know the importance of and the representation of faculty of color. And we haven't talked about that a lot, but I want to pause and take this opportunity to do that. It's one thing to bring students of different races and nationality to our campuses, but what they are also looking to see, in addition to the academic programs that they select, they're looking to see faculty that look like them, in addition to coursework that reflects their background and their identities as well. So we know that we have some work to do in the area of recruiting more diverse faculty, recruiting more diverse staff, because again, I'm so sorry. I made the point of differentiating between diversity, equity, and inclusion. Getting them in there is just the beginning. It's the work that you do to create an environment in which they can thrive in the classroom, outside of the classroom, making them feel safe and making them feel wanted. That's what's going to move the needle. That's what's going to move the needle. That's where you're going to see improvement in graduation rates. That's where you're going to see improvement in student satisfaction with what happens in the classroom, which we know is just one indicator of the quality of an academic program. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No, we're just running out of time, regrettably. But I was just going to say that in this arena especially, there are certain things that are very measurable, and there are certain other rather immeasurable areas, but they all need to improve. It sounds like you're on the right track.
I think we are, with the help of everyone in the PASHE community and outside in the local communities. I think we can do it.
Terrific. We're so glad that you're able to join us today. Now get back to work, will you? Just kidding.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Have a wonderful day today.
You do the same.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. Yes, there's much work to do, and Dr. Denise Pearson is leading the state system's efforts in that arena. And it sounds like we've certainly got a good start. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. 1 FM and AM 1160. 1 FM.